In today's video, we're cooking prime rib using a slow and sear on a Weber kettle. Hey, this is Ricer from Dead Broke Barbecue of Wisconsin, and welcome back to the channel. But if you're new here, we try to help you enhance and amplify your backyard barbecue fun. And today, we're cooking a prime rib using a slow and sear on a Weber kettle. It's Mother's Day. So I went to Ski's Meat Market and picked up a 3-bone prime rib. Ski's is located right on Highway 10 in Stevens Point, and it's a great butcher shop. Now, if you're into brats, you can find a lot of them. And their most popular ones are the Double Beer and the Bloody Mary brat. But let's get off that. Let's talk about prime rib. Now, seeing that it's Mother's Day, I'm gonna cook this prime rib to my wife's liking. Now, she always likes her cut at medium. I, on the other hand, prefer mine to be chopped off at the end of the move. When you're smoking a prime rib in a kettle, you want to make sure that you check the center of those internal temps and get that so it's right at that medium rare, because the outer edges are going to give you that medium to medium well. Okay, Tommy, grab your butcher knife and your charcoal basket and let's get cooking some prime rib. I took the rib roast out of the fridge and let it sit on the cutting board for about an hour just to come up closer to room temperature. Now I'm going to go ahead and French bone it a little bit. I am no butcher, probably doing it wrong, but this is how I do it. So now we're just going to follow along the edge of the bone, and you can see right here that we have this bone. It's pretty easy. You can just take your knife and start following down it. You don't want to cut too deep, just follow along and I just get it started. Now right here on this part, we're gonna start cutting that off, and I just follow along the meat. The meat tells you where it's at, okay? So it's really actually pretty simple. You don't want to throw this out because this makes great sausage, so keep it off the side, or you can use it for beef stock, either way. Some good meat in here, so if nothing else, make it a pit master's privilege and chew her up as it gets cooked on the grill. Now just cut out the meat in between the bone. Pretty simple. This is an expensive piece of meat, and the only reason why I'm really doing this is just because it's Mother's Day, and I want it to look nice for my wife. Dealing with me and the boys gets tricky sometimes, so you gotta make her happy. This is a little bit of a tedious job, obviously. And then we're gonna trim some of this fat off. No sense to keep it on there. Nobody wants to bite into a big chunk of fat on a piece of prime rib. Plus, when you trim off this fat, it's gonna help our rub stick so we can get that nice bark that we're looking for. Now, you can always have your butcher trim this up, but it's gonna cost you more a pound, obviously. Now, a rib roast is just ribeyes. It's also known as prime rib, but this is just a choice cut. So don't get confused with prime rib and prime rib. All right, we got our bones cut out, but we'll come back and clean it up a little bit after we get this fat off. Same thing, you can just kind of run your knife right along it, get some of this silver skin off, and expose that awesome meat. But be careful up along the rib cap or the spinalis side. You want to leave that fat there because that is all the flavor. The rib cap is the best part of this cut. Don't use the silver skin for sausage. This hand is filled with my waste trimmings and is going in the garbage. But this I'm gonna throw in a freezer bag and put it in the ice box for when I make sausage. And if you got a helper around, he can take the trash to the garbage can so you can keep your cutting board clean. And I cut a little bit of the fat off the rib cage a little bit. Just ends up leaking in your grill. So as you can see, these bones are pretty clear. I got the membrane off, most of the meat. Now I'm gonna cut and I'm gonna follow along the bones a little bit, but don't cut them all the way off. It makes it easier when you separate it after it's done cooking. So just take your knife and just follow right along the bones. Peeling it back a little bit, and I'm gonna get right about there. And this cooks up nice in the ribs, and it's something to chew on later. It's a great snack. We're gonna go ahead and tie this up. We're gonna clean off our cutting board, and I'm gonna change gloves again. Little barbecuer. So you're gonna get your string, because we're gonna wanna get this balled up so it cooks evenly. I just take it, hold your finger on it, twist it a couple times, and get her tight. And then I just put a knot on it, do another knot. I make 3 knots. And then just cut her off. Repeat the process, and you can do it this way too. You can just put your regular knot in. It's a little easier to hold it tighter and then twist. And if you got an extra person around that can help you, have them hold the shoelace. You don't want to touch the string with your gloves when you're cutting it off the roll. And if any butcher wants to come over and give me a 3-hour lesson how to tie this, I'd love it. Change my gloves and we're gonna season this up. I'm just gonna use a little olive oil. That's gonna be our binder. You just take it, rub it on good. We're gonna be low and slow in this, so the olive oil isn't gonna really burn up. And I typically, on all my rib roasts, I use a little olive oil. You can do it on the back side if you want to. Just again, watch out, these bones are sharp, so you just want to go over them gently. Make sure you're getting it on the edge also. It's a big piece of meat. Then we're gonna go ahead and use our salt, pepper, and garlic, and you can put this on heavy. We want this to penetrate. Don't forget to get the sides. Sometimes as I crack that bone open a little bit, let a little of that flavor go down inside it. Carefully, don't pull too hard. Pull your strings, loosen it up. And for today, I'm gonna use Weber's Chicago steak. There's a little bit of red pepper in there, and it's nice and coarse, and I like that. I like that red pepper flavor. You're gonna make a mess. It's gonna fly all over the place. Just help it stay to it, tap it on, tappity tap, but cover it good. Now we're gonna let this big chunk of meat sit and soak up all that salt and all that flavor. We'll go out, start up our grill. We're gonna use the slow and sear today. Now today I'm going to use my slow and sear for this cook. You do not have to have a slow and sear to cook a standing rib roast. I'm using it for convenience and convenience alone. Now a slow and sear is a very solid piece of equipment. It's made of stainless steel and it's going to last forever. Now today I want to cook around 275 to 300 degrees. We're going to place the slow and sear on the left side of the grill.
Well, for today's cook we're going to be using an apple. Yep, an apple. We're going to eat an apple.
We're gonna start out with 15 pieces of charcoal in our slow and sear and 2 wax cubes. Put the wax cubes kind of right in there, light them up. And the wood we're gonna use today is a chunk of cherry and a chunk of pecan. After that's set up, we're gonna go ahead and throw the rest of our charcoal in and we'll put our wood on top. And we're also gonna wanna start out with our vents wide open. Now, if you don't have a slow and sear, you can go ahead and use a couple charcoal baskets, or just take your charcoal and spread it on the one side of the grill. And again, you only wanna start with about 15 pieces of charcoal because we don't wanna cook this real hot and real fast. We just want that nice 275 to 300 degrees. So if you place your wax cubes so they're easy to get at, you can pull them right out. Our charcoal is all ashed over, and now I'm gonna dump in the rest. In today's cook, I'm gonna use a chunk of cherry and a chunk of pecan. Go ahead and throw them on top where it's already starting to burn. I'm gonna put an aluminum drip pan underneath it just so my grill stays cleaner. Put your grill grate in with the hinges above the fire, and we're gonna wanna monitor our pit temps, so put a probe in. We're gonna be cooking this rib roast around 275 to 300 degrees, indirect. So our fire's on our left, our rib roast is gonna be on the right. Put your lid on so the heat and the smoke will exit out to the right. Now that the lid's on, we're gonna start letting our pit do the work. Once we get around 150 degrees, we're gonna wanna start to close up those vents a little bit so we can back off that heat. We don't want to really cook this over 275 to 300 degrees. When I'm cooking, I like a decent amount of airflow, so I usually have my top vent left at half. That's it. I'd rather starve it a little bit from the bottom than have that smoke stay in there and smoldering around everything. I like it just to kiss it as it's going by. Now we're at 250 degrees, and I'm gonna go ahead and close that bottom vent just to about 3/8. Go ahead and close the top just to half. My temperature's reached about 255 degrees. I'm gonna go ahead and put this rib roast on, and then we're gonna set a timer for 1 hour. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put my meat probe right in the center. I wanna pull this right around 122 degrees.
Set a timer for 1 hour.
The timer. Okay, your timer is set for 1 hour.
Kids, they're so smart, you know, they know how to talk to Siri. We set a timer for 1 hour, and now I'm just gonna sit and monitor my pit temps.
So how am I supposed to rake?
Okay, so our timer went off. Now I'm gonna go ahead and rotate it 180 degrees. Go ahead and put another meat probe right through the top and hit it through the center. A good way to check that, hold your meat probe and kind of judge, yep, that's about the center. So hold your fingers like that and stick her in. Stop right there. Put the lid on and let's run it for another 30 minutes. Our 30-minute timer went off, and now I'm gonna check some internal temperatures. I have a Weber iGrill probe thermometer, and it works pretty good. It's Bluetooth, and it works on my cell phone, but I don't always trust the temperatures that thing is producing. So I'm gonna take out my NK4 and check internals with this for right now. So right now, we're at about 96 degrees internal temperature, 95. I'm gonna pull this rib roast away from the flames a little bit because I see that my bones are starting to get a little dark on the ends. And I'm gonna set a timer for another 15 minutes because I am closing in on that temperature that I wanna pull it. So you're learning something today, buddy. Okay, so our next 15-minute alarm went off, so let's check it now. We're right around 115 degrees, so we're getting close. We'll set another timer for another 15 minutes. All right, our timer went off, and it should be our last 15 minutes. Let's check it out. Okay, so we're right about that 120, 123 degrees, 122 where I want to be. We're gonna start searing this puppy up. I'm gonna leave the lid off and let that charcoal really start to heat up. I'm gonna pull out the probes, and then I'm gonna take that bone-in rib roast and I'm gonna set it right on top of the flames, and we're gonna start to sear it up. Gonna have to roll up my sleeves for this one. As you can see, this rib roast has some good color, but I just want to add just a little bit more color to it. If a guy wanted to be really fancy, you'd take aluminum foil and wrap it around these bones, and they hardly look like they even had any smoke on them. She's starting to look pretty good if you ask me. All right, so we got some good fire going right now. Now let's just give it that little extra crispiness. We're only gonna let this go for about 30 seconds on each side. Again, cotton gloves to protect yourself. Okay, this is the sear that I'm looking for, and I'm gonna rest it for about 15 minutes before I cut into it. Oh my gosh, it's so tempting. Arr. All right, so we've rested this for 15 minutes and I'm starving, so let's dive into it. Cut our strings first. Got our strings off, so now let's trim off the bones. Pretty simple. Just follow right along them. Midnight snack. Now remember that the outsides are going to be more done, so people that like it above that medium rare, give them the outside. But we're just going to cut it right down the middle. And there we are. Nice and pink. Perfect. I'm going to slice off a piece. And we'll slice off another piece from this side. Now as this starts to sit, it's going to start to oxidize and you're going to really start seeing that pink. But we're just going to try a little piece right from here. Gotta have the spinalis, you know. Awesome. Taste the rub that I have on the outside. It's got a nice bark. It's juicy, tender. Perfect. I'm very happy with this one. That's so good, I gotta have another piece. Delicious.
Thank you, honey. It's perfect.
Now this has been one of my longer videos, but we got time to do some reading, don't we? And today's comment comes from Phil in Florence, and he says, the wings looked great with awesome color. Great video, and love your passion and humor. Well, Phil, thanks for watching. I'm just a northern country boy that didn't have a ColecoVision back in the 80s, so I had to invent my own fun. And where does fun come from? Humor. Any of you are looking for a channel where a guy can take a backyard barbecue piece of equipment and modify it and make it work better, check out his channel. Phil has a very inventive mind and he's fun to watch. Now that prime rib turned out pretty good, and later tonight I'm gonna have a prime rib sandwich. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become a subscriber. Crush that notification bell so you know when we dropped our next video. Happy Mother's Day, moms, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.
Yummy!